The debate continues. Some fans are persistently against it, and some fans are adamantly for it. Is Boba Fett a Mandalorian? There are some new clues pointing to the fact that he is a Mandalorian. These could be misleading. I'll admit that. I will take some old clues and some new clues to try to piece it together. To some, there is not enough fact to support his actual status in the warrior culture. With the Mandalorian series and new comic book canon material, there are signs pointing to an end to this debate. Today, on Star Wars Fanatic. I have done many videos on this topic, and I am yet to get bored with it. The Mandalorians in general are my favorite culture in the Star Wars universe. Some like the Jedi, some like the Sith. The Sith is my second favorite. Not only are the Mandalorians a proud culture of warriors and artists, but they are also much more complex than that. They often have civil wars determining who the ruling house will be. Usually, it is House Vizsla that comes out on top. But from House Vizsla comes Prime Minister Almec, a true betrayer of the Mandalorian people, and Bo-Katan Kryze, who was involved in a plot to kill her own sister, so Death Watch could take power and return Mandalore to the old ways of the Mandalorian warrior culture of conquest and war. Both had denounced members of Clan Fett, the last two members of the clan. Why? Because Death Watch had wiped out the rest of the clan and now saw them as enemies. It was often the case that Mandalorians would denounce other Mandalorians, especially if those clans had been beaten or beaten the other clan. We must understand this to understand Boba Fett as a Mandalorian. More than a generation before the Mandalorian series, Prime Minister Almec and Bo-Katan were part of the terrorist organization called Death Watch. Like I explained before, Death Watch was trying to take power from the pacifist government ruled by Bo-Katan's sister, Duchess Satine. During a conversation with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Prime Minister Almec said Jango Fett was no Mandalorian. He was a common bounty hunter. We then learned he was playing both sides of the fence and hiding the fact that there were still Mandalorian warriors, after saying they were all dead. However, Jango was not a part of Death Watch. He was actually an enemy of the organization. He had fought against them during the Mandalorian Civil War, so this was the first case of a beaten clan member being denounced as a Mandalorian. And a lot of fans took it as face value that he wasn't a Mandalorian just because Prime Minister Almec said so. The second time is when Din Djarin and Boba Fett met with Bo-Katan and her Night Owls. She heard Boba's voice and denounced him immediately. Before he spoke, she had no problem with the armor he wore. Bo-Katan had some bad feelings with the clones and Fetts. His response? I never said I was. This armor was passed down to me from my father. This is hint number 1. It was a part of Mandalorian culture to hand down your armor to the next generation, either after your death or after training. So Bo-Katan's prejudice in clones made this statement for her to be true. The fact that Boba Fett is a clone is unimportant to his actual status. A lot of people tell me, well, he's a clone. If he's a Mandalorian, then so are all the other clones. I understand that logic, but that only comes into play if genealogy was the only factor in being a Mandalorian. If we use Jango Fett for an example, he was born on Concord Dawn and raised by a true Mandalorian after his family was killed. He was a Mandalorian by birth and a Mandalorian in upbringing. So Boba Fett was a clone of Jango Fett. Essentially, he was Jango. Jango raised him for the first decade or so of his life, teaching him to fight and the ways of the true Mandalorians. He was also taught that he was the heir to the rule of Mandalore, as the Mandalore himself. So Boba had the DNA, not that any modern Mandalorian was genetically a Mandalorian. I'll explain that in a bit. And Boba Fett was a Mandalorian by upbringing and training. But that is all still conjecture to some fans. They were denounced by Mandalorians. Yes, Mandalorians that had agendas of power and saw Fetts as a threat to that power. But Boba said he wasn't a Mandalorian to Din Djarin and Bo-Katan Kryze, is another argument people make. No, what he actually said was, I owe my allegiance to no one, and I never said I was. It should be seen as he owed his allegiance to no one because his father was the only other member of Clan Fett, leaving Boba on his own. He didn't take the same Mandalorian creed that Din took because each clan has different creeds, as evident by the helmet rule. So he never actually answered whether or not he took a creed. And he wasn't wrong. He never said he was a Mandalorian. In fact, he never said he wasn't a Mandalorian either. Actually, before that moment, he didn't say anything to Bo-Katan. I have said this numerous times. Now let's look at some other items pointing to Boba Fett being a Mandalorian. His name is embedded in the armor in the language of the Mandalorians, Mandoa. This seems insignificant to some, but from what I understand, someone can't just put their name in armor like that. It has to be done by a Mandalorian armorer. I could be mistaken, but I remember reading that somewhere. Another scene of interest is that Din Djarin allowed him to keep the armor after seeing his name in it. This is not insignificant. Beskar belongs to the Mandalorians, and it is their duty to return it. Look at the case of Cobb Vanth. Mando was going to kill him to take the armor. He didn't kill him, but he did get the armor back. It doesn't matter that he bought it fair and square from Jawas. It did not belong to someone who didn't take a Mandalorian creed. That brings me to my next point. Yes, his armor is Beskar. They mention it in The Mandalorian, and it is confirmed in the new Bounty Hunters comic. Valance tells Boba Fett that it will take more than Beskar armor to protect him. The encounter in the bar with Bo-Katan is important. It shows that she dropped the subject when she saw him fight, using the same moves as her night owl, Casca Reeves. She knew he was trained in the way of the Mandalorian and even addressed both of them when she told them that if they had shown that much fight to the Empire, they would not have lost their home. Now, if we're wondering if he took a creed, look at his devotion to helping Mando get Grogu back. He made the deal and stuck to it. This is the Mandalorian way. If that is in question, go back and watch the episode where Bo-Katan makes a deal with Mando. She tells him she knows where a Jedi is and will give him the location if he helps her with the Imperial cargo vessel. So he does, and she upholds her end of the bargain. Most other cutthroat cultures would have betrayed one another. For example, Hondo Ohnaka and his pirates. Aurra Singh would have double-crossed as well. And she did. She left Boba to get caught. Doesn't look like he learned much from her tutelage after all. Seems more of a Mandalorian creed. But, as other fans have pointed out, all these things could simply be conjecture. Until we get something solid, like a Mandalorian god figure coming out and screaming, Boba Fett is a Mandalorian, or vice versa, this debate will continue, and it will get heated on either side. Do I want him to be a Mandalorian? Of course. I don't want my favorite Star Wars character to be seen as a pretender, even though it is established that he earned the armor. But I'm okay with however it turns out. What do you think? Is the evidence enough to prove he is a Mandalorian? Is it the opposite? Do you want Boba Fett to be a Mandalorian, or is it unimportant? Let me know in the comments below. I really like hearing from you and interacting with you. It's my favorite part of this channel. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on my video releases. I know some of you haven't done it yet, so why not go ahead? Go ahead and hit the thumbs up to support the channel as well, the video and the hard work I put into each one. Share the video with a friend who doesn't like Boba Fett. That should be fun. Thank you for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.